Hello and welcome. I'm Oksana Bonita. This is Midwest Crime Corner. Let's get into it. Today I'm going to talk about a case that is so heinous, but it originated from seemingly an act of kindness. Imagine you're driving to work when suddenly the person in the car next to you is trying to get your attention. You pull over to the shoulder and they follow behind. A good Samaritan, you think. You look into your rear seat to your 3 children, thankful that this person was able to get your attention and that they're willing to help you, not knowing that this soon would seal all 4 of your fates. On April 28th, 1978, Terry Chastain, 21, and her 3 children, Misty Zollers, 5, Stephen Chastain, 4, and Mark Chastain, 2, going on 3, were brutally unalived in a creek in Morgan County, Indiana, by the hands of Stephen Judy, who was 22 at the time of the crimes. Terry was on her way to work that morning at a Marsh supermarket in Indianapolis, but she needed to drop her kids off at their babysitter first. She was driving down Interstate 465 that morning when Stephen Judy noticed her, followed her, flagged her down, and was able to get her to pull over to the shoulder. They both exited their vehicles, with Judy telling Terry that it looked like one of her rear tires was loose. Terry went to the trunk of her car to retrieve her tire iron and gave it to Judy, who then tightened her tire. They both returned to their vehicles, only for Terry to then return to Judy, stating that there is something now wrong with her emergency brake. Judy looked under the hood of Terry's car and removed a coil wire from the engine, preventing it from starting. It was then that he offered Terry and her children a ride. You see, Stephen Judy was no stranger to vicious crimes. When he was just 13 years old, he posed as a Boy Scout and forced his way into a woman's house in Indianapolis and brutally attacked her. Once inside the woman's house, he began R-wording her. Then he began stabbing her with a pocket knife until the blade broke off. After that, he found a hatchet and used it to fracture the woman's skull. In an attempt to block the blows from the hatchet, he cut off one of the woman's fingers and her left hand. Stephen Judy only spent 6 months in a juvenile detention center in Indianapolis for that crime, before being released to his foster parents, who had no knowledge of his prior crimes or his home environment. Stephen Judy was the perfect example of nature versus nurture. He grew up in a violent and alcoholic home, with exposure to pornography and crime at a young age. His father would frequently assault his mother, resulting in numerous arrests. One time, his father came home, only to find his mother cheating on him, and in retaliation, his father killed their family dog. Stephen even recalled numerous occasions when his mom pulled a gun on his dad, attempting to fire upon him, only to fail. Before his brutal attack on the woman in Indianapolis, as a child, Judy was already getting into trouble and causing havoc in his neighborhood and to his classmates, with having set fire to a neighbor's garage and stabbing a classmate with a compass. Stephen even admitted to attacking high school girls by wrestling them to the ground and then touching them above their clothing at just the age of 10. Several witnesses testified to seeing Stephen Judy with Terry Chastain and her children on Interstate 465 the morning of the murders, with one man stating that Judy was driving erratically and that while at a stoplight, Terry waved at him. I really have to wonder if Terry knew that something was wrong and that her and her children were in imminent danger. And was she trying to get that man's attention? When Stephen Judy arrived at the White Lick Creek Bridge in Mooresville, Indiana, he ordered Terry and her children to get out of the truck and directed them to the creek. Once at the creek, he told the children to go up the path further along than where he and Terry were at. It was then that Stephen Judy proceeded to R-word Terry, ripping her clothes and using the torn cloth to bound and gag her. Terry cried out. Her children came to her aid. With the children yelling at Judy for what he was doing to their mother, he proceeded to strangle her in front of the children and then tossed her lifeless body into the water. Judy testified at his trial that he threw each child as far as he could into the water, with each child dying as a result of drowning. After unaliving the children, Judy retraced his steps and went back to the truck, attempting to cover up his footsteps in the process. One of the witnesses during the trial also testified to seeing Judy that morning at the crime scene, carrying one child under his arm and a bundle under the other that resembled a child, with the third child walking in front of him. There were no other adults with him, indicating that he had already assaulted Terry. The entire crime only took about 30 minutes, with witnesses saying that they saw Steve and Judy with Terry and her children at the crime scene at 7 a.m., and by 7:30 a.m., Steve and Judy was seen leaving the scene erratically, alone. Judy then drove back to Indianapolis to his foster parents' home to return the truck to his foster father between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. that morning. Initially, Judy denied any involvement in the crimes, indicating that he was with his girlfriend at the time, and initially she backed him up before redacting her statement. At the trial, Judy tried to plead insanity, with the psychologist, Dr. Kathy Whittam, testifying that Stephen Judy had antisocial personality disorder. It was also of her opinion that Stephen was, quote, legally insane. Dr. Whittam became involved with Stephen Judy at age 13 when he had posed as that Boy Scout and attacked that woman in her home in Indianapolis. Before being sent to the juvenile detention center in Indy, Judy was sent to Central State Hospital in Indianapolis. When he was discharged from Central State Hospital, they were of the opinion that he had, quote, recovered from his emotional state and that further hospitalization was not needed. During his trial, Judy testified that his life of crime started at just the age of 10. He claimed to have taken part in around 200 shoplifting incidents, 20 to 50 robberies, 24 car thefts, and between 12 to 16 R-words. Victims of Judy's carjackings and robberies testified against the defense's insanity plea, contradicting them with Judy's own behaviors during his crimes, stating that he was of sound mind during his crimes and that he was fully able to have stopped had he wished to do so. One witness did say that Judy acted, quote, crazy while he was assaulting her. Two court-appointed psychiatrists testified that during their evaluations of Stephen Judy that he did exhibit signs of antisocial personality disorder, but that he was legally sane at the time of his crimes against Terry Chastain and her 3 children. The trial ended with the jury finding Stephen Judy guilty of all 4 charges of murder. It was easy for the jury to come back with a guilty verdict after the evidence and Judy spoke for themselves. After the jury came back with a guilty verdict, Judy told his lawyers to not try to appeal to the jury for a lighter sentencing. Judy openly told the jury to give him the death penalty. He even waived his right to appeal. During his sentencing, Judy told the judge, "Give me death," and "I honestly want you to give me the death penalty because one day I might get out. And if you don't want another death hanging over your head, I think that's the only thing that you can do." Judy was so consumed with wanting to get the death penalty that he threatened to choke the judge, and he threatened each and every jury member, telling them that he would come after them and their families if he ever got out, and telling one juror specifically that he knew where he lived and that he had a daughter. I find it interesting how consumed Judy was with wanting to get the death penalty and to have it carried out, almost in a compulsive-like nature. Very similar to how consumed he was with chasing after Terry on the interstate and following her and getting her to pull over, luring her into his trap to satisfy his own sick and twisted urges. On March 10th, 1981, in Michigan City, Indiana, at the Indiana State Prison, Stephen Judy got his death wish. Judy was offered a 10-milligram injection of Valium 15 minutes before his execution, and he quickly relaxed. For Judy's last meal, he ate prime rib, lobster, baked potatoes, and dinner rolls. The day before his execution, Stephen Judy's foster mother came to visit him in his prison cell one final time. During that visit, they exchanged hugs, with Stephen telling his foster mother how sorry he was for the pain that he had put her and his foster father through. Some of Judy's final statements were, "I don't hold any grudges. This is my doing. Sorry it happened. Anything good never made an impression on me." The day before Stephen's execution, local news crews came to interview him. It was during this interview Stephen made statements saying that women were gullible and easy targets. He even said that he wasn't sorry for his crimes. And he did say that he was glad that it was finally over, in reference to his life soon coming to an end. So it's hard to tell really where the truth lies in his statements. during that interview, to me, it seems a bit forced what he's saying. I don't think that Stephen is sorry for his crimes, but I do think that on some level, what he did disturbed him. But like I said, I don't think he's really sorry for his crimes. Shortly after midnight, on March 10th, 1981, 23,000 volts of electricity surged through Stephen Judy's body, causing him to stiffen up and shake violently. Prior to his execution, people against the death penalty would write to Judy, pleading with him to fight his execution. But Stephen Judy truly wanted to die. Despite Stephen's wishes to carry out the death penalty, people showed up outside the Indiana State Prison to protest his execution. In the week prior to his execution, his foster mother came and made a visit. It was during that visit that Stephen confessed to his foster mother about committing many more crimes, with some happening in Indiana and as far away as Louisiana. He claimed to have committed so many of these assaults against women that he couldn't remember exactly how many he had committed. It is believed that Stephen Judy is responsible for 7 to 10 more murders. Like I mentioned earlier with the nature versus nurture sentiment, I truly have to wonder with Stephen Judy, if his parents hadn't been so horrible, if they had done right by their son, would it have made a difference? His foster parents, from all accounts, were very loving and kind people. They loved Stephen up until the end, despite all of his horrific faults. They even spoke highly about him after his execution. But it seems that what he was exposed to in early childhood had already caused too much damage. Personally, I don't think the environment was fully to blame. I think some level of psychopathy had to have already been within him, and he just used his environment to justify his actions and crimes against women. So my hometown is Mooresville, and I've had to drive over the bridge where Terry and her children so brutally lost their lives numerous times. My mom also grew up in the town, and she can remember my grandfather, who was connected in town through various ways, getting a phone call from the chief of police and hearing her parents talking and my grandmother getting very upset about whatever my grandpa had told her. And then eventually my mom, found out, and it's a haunting reminder in the town. Even though their murders happened a little over a decade before I was even born, Terry and her children are not forgotten. As a mother myself, I can only imagine just how terrified Terry was for her children and for herself. The absolute confusion and fear that they must have gone through in their final moments is beyond heartbreaking to think about. Nobody should have to go through that. I can only hope that Terry and her children are together and they surround each other with love and with warmth. That is going to wrap it up for today's video. Thank you for watching my first YouTube video. And if you liked my content, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one.